So should the US fund an Israeli war that even President Biden believes has gone too far? Should the US back Ukraine's war against Russia?
This is the one war that Republicans are like, oh, our God King Emperor told us we don't like this war.
Your President Biden, sleepy over there, poo-poo pants, it gave him the authority to shut down the border. We know he's not going to shut down the border. He's never considered.
Bit of a cat fight going on here. Hey fam, welcome and welcome back to One and Done. We're going to be checking out Piers Morgan again, and he has a panel. Tomi, Lahren and Francesca, they are going to be duking it out, a real cat fight. Now this battle starts up nice and friendly and builds up at the end, comes to a huge climax, so make sure you stick around for that. And the subject matter are these endless wars. Should the US be funding them? Israel, Hamas, Ukraine and Russia. Now before we dive in, if you want to help a brother out, help me get to that 1,000 sub club. Don't forget to hit the like, smash the subscribe, ring the notification bell, and share this video far and wide. Now without delay guys, let's roll that tape.
The $95 billion aid package finally passed this weekend will be spent mostly on military hardware for Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan. On one side, critics draped to the Ukrainian flag are furious at America supporting what they see as a genocidal Israeli assault on Gaza. On the other, Israel supporters fume that backing for America's biggest ally in the Middle East is contingent on backing for President Zelensky. This was the moment that the Ukraine aid was finally approved by the House of Representatives this weekend.
Pride flags, Ukrainian flags. The fact of the matter is, Joe Biden's running the White House like a brothel. People recording sex acts inside the White House. None of these wars would have gone ahead if he had shown leadership. The problem is he's a muppet and a puppet on a string.
The argument I hear most often against America's backing for Ukraine is that America can't afford it and shouldn't even try to until it fixes the crisis at the southern border. To which I would say, well, of course America can afford it. This is a drop in the ocean of America's spending generally.
Piers, that's a ridiculous argument. Ukraine's not even part of NATO, so the US should have zero involvement. There has to be other reasons why they got themselves involved. And if Europeans really cared, they would be outspending with donations to Ukraine. They would be outspending the US. That's like having the attitude, oh, my cousin's rich, they can pay for dinner tonight. But doing that for 2 years non-stop.
So should the US fund an Israeli war that even President Biden believes has gone too far? Should the US back Ukraine's war against Russia, even with no end in sight for the conflict? And will this money really make a difference on the ground? These are the big questions that we're debating tonight with the host of Tomi, Lahren is Fearless on Outkick, Tomi Lahren, Chris Capeluto, who's a US military veteran and host of Task and Purpose on YouTube, and by the journalist and commentator Francesca Fiorentini. Okay, Tomi, you were very quick to challenge me on X a couple of days ago when you saw me embracing this deal as a good thing, and you were chomping at the bit to explain to me why it's terrible. So off you go.
Well, first of all, Piers, when you said that the United States has unlimited money, that's not true. We have no money. We are in debt. So the fact that we just have this unlimited money to spread across the world, meanwhile, we've got American cities looking like the third world, and of course, our wide open southern border, that to me is a point of contention. But I'll also say this. Now, I understand initially wanting to help Ukraine, and I understand in year one, maybe year 1.5, maybe year 2, supplying Ukraine with what they needed. But now as we're entering year 3 of this, at some point, there needs to be a reality check. Can Ukraine actually win this war without other countries stepping in and actually fighting it for them?
Tommy's absolutely right. Some cities in America, particularly in the blue states or the blue cities, look like they are in third world countries. The homelessness, drug crisis, crime. The border should be #1 priority, security at home, let alone some foreign border thousands of miles away. The other thing is that this war has been going on and on and on and on. There's no end or result in sight. What is the plan? They just keep spending. They just keep sending military equipment and aid. How many lives is that piece of land worth? All the young men are basically gone. Deleted, ended. Ukraine's going to have no young men to help build and restore the country. It's ludicrous. They should have struck a peace deal. This thing's going on and on and on for way too long. Not one red cent should go there. They're never going to win this war. Ever. If Russia wanted, they could obliterate the whole place just like that.
And furthermore, you've got Ukraine being the second most corrupt country on the face of the earth behind Russia, and we're continuing to send millions and billions of dollars. A lot of Americans don't really know where that's going. And a lot of us also feel that when this eventually ends and there's some kind of a diplomatic resolution with Russia, then the United States is going to go in and give more money to Ukraine for so-called nation building. So when does the spigot get shut off? And also, why are Democrats so reluctant to say we will loan you this money? We will loan you this equipment. Why is this a forgivable loan when the United States itself and so many Americans are currently suffering under inflation and Joe Biden's policies? That's something that a lot of conservatives want to know, and that's why we're furious over this.
That does seem bizarre. They're throwing money hand over fist, and there is no obligation for the Ukraine to repay the money. And as Tomi said, they were rated the second most corrupt country in the world next to Russia. There's plenty other democratic countries that need aid and help without the loss of lives. The US ain't going in there.
All right, explain to me, though, the difference ideologically between supporting Israel, which is under threat from a totalitarian regime in Iran and through proxies, and Ukraine, which is under threat from a totalitarian regime in Russia. What's the difference?
Well, for one, Israel has a chance of winning their war. They can decimate Hamas. They can put an end to this quickly and decisively if our own president would stop standing in their way. And of course, we've got this disgusting, nasty pro-Hamas protesters on our own college campuses, which is a discussion for another day. But Israel can win this. Israel can wipe out Hamas and Islamic terrorism. We haven't seen Ukraine be able to hold off Russia. So there's the first difference here. And also, as I mentioned previously, Israel has a track record of being able to audit itself, being able to be responsible with money that it's being given. Really? I don't know if we can say the same thing about Ukraine. I don't think anyone would believe that Ukraine, which has a long history of corruption, Piers, as you know.
Okay, I have one question for you.
Exactly. Money has been going to Ukraine and it's been going missing. There's no track record of where this money has gone. Anyone with common sense would know that money's just been laundered. The top dogs are taking their slice of the pie. And even weapons. Some are saying that these weapons are being sold overseas in different wars in different countries. And some of the top leaders are building their own retirement houses in other countries as well.
Which of these two leaders is currently involved directly in a corruption trial alleging fraud, bribery and breach of trust? Is it President Zelensky or is it Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, the people of Israel will have to decide on the Netanyahu issue, and they will decide that. But Ukraine as a country goes far beyond just Zelensky. Ukraine itself has a long history of corruption. So it's not about just one guy and one election that can easily maybe solve some of those problems. This is about a nation that has a history of corruption. So a lot of Americans are unsettled about sending so much money. And also, I would also point this out. It's not just military aid. It's also economic aid. The fact that the American people are funding economic aid for government bureaucrats in Ukraine, I'm sorry, Piers, that's a bridge too far for me.
That's 100% right. These bureaucrats are on some sort of retirement package, and US taxpayers are funding it. It's ludicrous, it's ridiculous. And anyone with an ounce of common sense could see this.
Okay, Francesca, your response.
I think both of your framing is bogus. I don't think that Israel is fighting against a totalitarian regime in Iran, and I don't think they're waging a war. They are waging a one-sided ethnic cleansing against the people of Gaza, 34,000 of whom have been killed already, and 25,000 of those people are women and children. There was just a mass grave discovered under a hospital in the city of Khan Yunis where surgeons in scrubs were found handcuffed before they were summarily killed. So I think both of your framing is off here. If anything, if you're going to talk about the ways that Ukraine actually mirrors Israel, it's that the people of Palestine are the Ukrainians, and their own sovereignty has been taken from them by Israel, and in the case of Ukraine, by Russia. Look.
Firstly, I don't think this is a genocide. If it is, Israelis are failing miserably. They are not wiping everybody out. They're dropping pamphlets, they're sending thousands of texts warning civilians to leave the area. Now, that's not a common thing in war. You didn't see Hamas doing that on October 7. And if you want to blame anyone, you have to blame Hamas because they should have seen this coming if they really cared about their citizens. Now, I'm not justifying either way, but Hamas did take it upon themselves to attack innocent women and children on the 7th of October. Now, no one wants to see anybody, especially women and children, getting killed. But if someone breaks into my house and takes my wife and children or attacks them, best believe I'm going to do everything in my power to stop the perpetrators and eliminate the threat. Now, this is war, and like I've said many times before, there's no winners in war. And I'm not necessarily siding one way or the other. I just want peace, and I don't think Hamas are the ones that are going to be able to achieve peace for Palestinian people. But they have to be the ones to make up their minds who they want to represent them. Now, they voted Hamas in.
Look, broken clock situation here with Tomi Lahren, because honestly, we disagree about pretty much everything. But I think it is true that we need to see some sort of light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to funding endless war. You know, Tomi, you said diplomacy. Man, if only we had diplomacy in this situation in both Israel and in Russia. But no one's actually talking about true diplomatic solutions. So Representative Ilhan Omar has said that she would like checks on the amount of weapons that are sent over to Ukraine to see if there is, what has been the result of that? Can we talk about diplomatic solutions? As a progressive, as someone who does not want to see more war and more death, I believe in that too. What's funny about Republicans in this case, though, is they never met a war they didn't like. They don't apply this to Israel. They don't apply this to anywhere else in the world. They love war. They got us into Iraq. They got us into Afghanistan. They got us into, some drone wars in Pakistan. And now they want to send troops down to the southern border so they can prevent a Salvadoran woman from coming into this country and setting up the best lunch spot in their town. Pupusas are delicious. And that's where they're like, oh, they love wars. So why is it that this is the one war that Republicans don't like? Does it have anything to do with the fact that in the year 2016, Donald Trump actually changed the RNC platform, the Republican platform then? And the one thing he changed was what? We will not defend Ukraine if Russia gets involved. Very curious.
Look, that might have been true in the past that Republicans liked war, back in Bush days, for example. However, Democrats love war more. Obama dropped more bombs than any other president in history. Now, when Trump came in, he was anti-war. He didn't want war. He wanted peace. And during his 4 years in office, predominantly there was peace. He didn't start any fresh wars. Now, today there are still neocons in the Republican Party. They tend to be the older generation. And if you look at the votes that just went through Congress, Democrats voted 2-1. So there's more people in the Democrat Party that love war.
What is the rationale, do you think, for America supporting Ukraine? And why would it differ in any way from supporting either Israel or Taiwan?
Thank you, Piers. Yeah, I think it's the Republicans have concerns about sending $95 billion in foreign aid to countries like Ukraine, and in this case in Ukraine. And I can understand that concern, because you don't want to see the money go, and like Tammy just brought up, you don't want that money to be wasted, especially if you think that there's no possibility of Ukraine potentially winning. But when you look at, from a military point of view, from a military strategy point of view, you look at the actual aid bill, you see the type of capabilities that we're planning to send to Ukraine. Like, the first thing on the aid bill that you see is the long-range ATACMS. The ATACMS missile, the previous version that we sent to Ukraine, had a top max range of about 165 kilometers. This new missile is going to have a 300 kilometer max range, which will put additional pressure on the Russian front lines. They'll be able to strike their command outposts deeper behind the front lines. So I do think that this aid will increase the likelihood that Ukraine could be victorious.
Yeah, it's not hard to increase the likelihood when the likelihood right now is 0. Big fat goose egg. It's a 0. The likelihood for Ukraine to win this war is 0. Now, you send them extra weapons, extra funding, you just prolong the big 0. because they still have no chance. Doesn't matter what you send them.
So yes, I understand the Republicans' hesitancy to send money there, especially when Ukraine in the past has had issues with corruption, and you don't want to see that money be wasted or spent in a bad way there. But when you look at the bill, what happens is you see that there's additional funding for oversight in that bill. So I think there's less of a concern for that. I think that the main thing that's missing in Ukraine right now is that they don't have the artillery shells that they need. They don't have the air defense capabilities that they need, because right now we're seeing Ukraine is being pushed back. That is factual. They just lost a city in Avdiivka. But the reason that's happening is because Russia is able to push their fighter jets closer to the front lines. They're able to drop glide bombs, 500-kilogram bombs that leave giant craters, that they're firing at 100 of these munitions a day. So if they had air defense munitions and the Patriot batteries, if that was sent to Ukraine today, that wouldn't be happening. And the evidence that I would provide for that is if you look at the last 2 years of aid that we sent, we saw it was working. In 2022, the Ukrainians pushed forward in their counteroffensive. They gained land. They weren't losing territory until coincidentally, they just started losing territory in the last 6 months.
This dude must be a sales rep for the warmongers, I swear to God. Who said they were ever winning? MSNBC, CNN. Oh yeah, we can really trust them, can't we?
I think that that's happening because the aid dried up. So the Pentagon, they're smart. They have stockpiles right now in Germany of all these different munitions that are just waiting for the green light to be sent into Ukraine. The aid would get there quickly. I do think it would have an impact on the ground. Now, to your point, Piers, about why aren't we supporting a country that is under attack from authoritarian governments? Yeah. Something that I think that is interesting from a military strategy point of view. Recently, if you look at China, North Korea, and Iran, they don't have any qualms with supporting Russia. You look at North Korea, they just spent 3 million artillery shells they shipped on 6,000 containers over to Russia to help support Russia's war efforts. When you look at Iran, they sent thousands of drones, 300,000 artillery shells. This is billions in aid that Iran and North Korea have sent. And China as well. China might as well be sending a foreign aid bill of their own because they're buying cheap Russian oil and they're supporting the war effort that way. And they're also more recently upping their ante. They're sending machine tooling parts. They're sending missile components that they could use for cruise missiles in Russia. So Russia, Iran, and North Korea are adversaries, authoritarian governments. They believe that it's worth investing in Russia. They believe that the outcome of the war in Ukraine is important enough to invest all of that billions of aid into. So I am surprised that the Republicans aren't moving faster on the bill, but they are moving on it. You just saw Mike Johnson. He just switched to now.
Well, he did, but interestingly, Donald Trump actually,
from his point of view, he said it was because he got an intelligence report that made him change his mind. Yeah. So I'd be curious to know what was in that report.
Yeah, well, he made it clear that he read the reports, believed them, and thinks that if anyone thinks that Putin will stop with Ukraine, they're living in cloud cuckoo land, which brings me back to you, Tomi.
These people can't be this foolish. They can't be that naive, that dumb, that stupid. If Putin wanted to roll Ukraine, he would have done it by now. There's no way on planet Earth that he ever wants to go any further than where he's gone already. Now, you guys will remember during the debates, the Republican debates, Vivek Ramaswamy was warning, all Biden's doing is pushing Russia into the arms of China, Iran, and all these other countries. These other countries have had enough. They're sick of US meddling in other affairs. Now, I can understand the US wanted to help Ukraine out. I can understand that initially. But I don't think there was any time ever that they needed to go to war. Ever. They should have sat down and negotiated a peace deal. They provoked the situation. They shouldn't have been saying, we want Ukraine to come into NATO. At the end of the Cold War, it was promised that NATO wouldn't grow an inch. And I believe 14 countries have joined since then. Ukraine's right on Russia's doorstep. Of course, Putin's not going to be happy with that. Not justifying what Vladimir Putin's done, but I certainly ain't justifying what Joe Biden and his puppet masters have done. They should have tried to negotiate a settlement, a deal. Now, Russia's got wealthier and they've formed big alliance with other countries like China.
Why are you living in cloud cuckoo land about Vladimir Putin? Why do you not think that if he was to prevail in Ukraine to actually beat a sovereign democratic European country, he wouldn't just march into another one? He's a ruthless Russian dictator. And since when did Republicans suck up to ruthless Russian dictators and say, go on, help yourself to sovereign democratic countries? I thought you were the absolute
2016.
epitome of saving freedom and democracy, weren't you?
I'll tell you this, there are a lot of neocons in my party who love war and they love the military-industrial complex and they would love to continue wars all around the world because it lines their pockets. I'm talking about people like Dick Cheney and Nikki Haley. Dick Cheney and Nikki Haley are not America First conservatives like was birthed during the Make America Great Again movement, where we said we are done with endless wars. We are done with going in and meddling in other nations and then spending more money to rebuild those nations. And a lot of us have had enough of it because we've seen that the fruits of that have not proven anything positive for the American people or our way of life. But I'll also say this. There's a lot of talk about should we help Ukraine? Should we not help Ukraine? Like I said before, Piers, let's make it alone. Ukraine is a mineral-rich, natural resources-rich territory. They should be able to repay us. If indeed they are able to take our generous handouts, they should be able to repay us. So I don't understand why that can't be put on the table and why there's such heavy pushback for them to repay us if they do, in fact, beat Russia with our help.
Right, but are you comfortable for Vladimir Putin to win? Do you think that's in America's national interest, given what you've just heard from a military expert about the axis of evil? Quite clearly, Iran, North Korea, China, all invested in Russia prevailing here. Why would that not send massive alarm bells to you about what's going on in the geopolitical part of this?
It certainly does. But again, if Ukraine can win this war without American boots on the ground, that would be great. They haven't given us the indication that they are able to do that. And how many years is this going to drag on? How much more U.S. funding is going to drag on? And also, why isn't Europe chipping in a little bit more? I'm sorry, Piers, but you'd think maybe the U.S. didn't have to be the babysitter
well, I would
for
say
the
on
world.
that,
I'd also say in
well, hang
regards
on, on
to
that,
Russia,
I would say the UK has, but other countries have been lagging, and you're right. I've always agreed with Donald Trump, by the way, about NATO countries not pulling their weight financially. It shouldn't be left to America to always be the ones who do pay their dues when others don't. So I completely agree about that point of it.
I can tell you right now why they haven't paid a cent, because they don't think Vladimir Putin is a threat beyond Ukraine. That's exactly why. There has to be some other reason why these warmongers continue to fund this war. It's a dead-end war. It's a dead-loss war. Mark my words, Vladimir Putin is going to end up with the land that he's got right now at the end of this war, whether it's in a year's time, whether it's in 5 years' time, whether it's in 10 years' time. The only thing is there's going to be 0 Ukrainians left because they've already lost hundreds of thousands of young people already. I think their average army age is like 46, 47 or something. And this is one subject where Piers Morgan has lost the plot. I don't know where he's coming from with his arguments. Tomi has just thrown straight facts and logic in his face and made him look like a beta.
But I just find it staggering that anyone in America would genuinely think that letting Putin win would be good for America, because it wouldn't be. It would embolden one of your great historical enemies. Just bring in Francesca here on that, because you're nodding.
I would just say it's an awkward position for Tomi to be in because the reality is that there's total hypocrisy here, that this is the one war that Republicans are like, oh, our God, King, Emperor told us we don't like this war, and so we have to figure out a way to not like this war, but like all the other wars, which is Donald Trump. And here's Donald Trump's worldview. I think Tomi is tapping into something very real in the Republican Party, which is a sense of isolationism, right? They're like, we don't want wars abroad. We want wars here on our own people, like black people, brown people, and the southern border. We love those kinds of wars.
Hang on. She never says that.
Let me finish.
Hang on.
Let me finish.
Hang on. Let me just, on that point, no, I can't let you say that without challenging that.
You can't make this up. I knew it. I knew it all along. I knew she was one of them. One of those race baiting trolls. talking absolute nonsense. Once she started talking about Trump the way she was talking about him, we must have. I knew she was trolling.
She never said anything like that. And the truth is about the southern border, it's not the cozy little picture that you paint of some poor woman and their baby, being stopped from coming in and having lunch. The situation of the southern border, whether you're on the left or the right or any political side in America, is an absolute disaster that everybody knows is an absolute disaster. So to categorize it as racism, I think is completely wrong.
They don't call it racist. It just happens to be Latinos and black people that get the boots on their necks. But when it comes to law and order on our God Emperor, who's currently in his first criminal trial right now, that's fine. He can flaunt whatever laws he wants.
Yeah, she's super trolling, this woman. She's a typical lefty, all on emotion. That's why the country's in a mess. She doesn't have a logic bone in her body. She cannot see 1 + 1 = 2. And we got to credit Piers because he did call her out for being a nutter.
The thing is this, I don't believe that we need to support those endless wars. I think Tommy's absolutely correct. And I think the base of both the Democratic and the Republican parties, the left, the right, whatever you want to call it, are sick and tired. Because as Piers, you aptly laid out, there's never a question of where the money's going to come from when it comes to war. But whenever we want anything like, I don't know, money for education or paid family leave or reining in, climate chaos, then it's like, oh my goodness. And it's usually Republicans who are like trillions of dollars of debt. But if Donald Trump is reelected, he's going to extend that debt by extending the tax breaks that he gave to his billionaire friends. And that added almost $2 trillion to our deficit. But no one's asking how we're going to pay for that. So I'm pointing out the hypocrisy on the left and the right. Leading Democrats are full of it when it comes to endless war, and I'm the first to call that out. We need an actual diplomatic solution. Yes, Putin is an unstable actor, but there has to be a way forward that isn't just more war. I agree with you. We don't want him to win.
Okay, I understand what she's saying. She wants more money for education, healthcare, etc., etc. Well, we already know what the government does with the money for education. They basically light it up, put it on fire, and teach kids nothing. And if she wants more money for those sorts of things, she should be against this funding. Now, to her credit, she did call out both sides. That's fine. I agree with her. You've got the neocons in the Republican Party.
Yeah, I do too.
But all of this comes back to Donald Trump. Can I just say all of it comes back to Trump? Trump was the reason that there wasn't a bipartisan border bill passed. Biden was ready to sign it. I personally disagreed with it, but a bunch of leading Republicans did. And then, God Emperor stepped in and said, no. Not yet.
That has to be the worst Trump impersonation ever.
And so I want to know what Tommy's answer to that is, putting all of this on Biden when Biden was the one who say, let's move forward with border security.
All
right, Tomi, last word to you.
I can't wait to talk to somebody. Yeah. I can't wait to talk about border security with Francesca because she's got a very limited knowledge of the subject. I wonder how many times she's been there. I've been 6. Go with me next time. All right. The bipartisan border bill was a sham and a joke. It gave your president, Biden, sleepy over there, poo-poo pants. It gave him the authority to shut down the border. We know he's not going to shut down the border. He's never considered. Yeah, if you're trying to debate the cognitive abilities between your president and mine, let's go, my friend. But I will say this, our border is wide open. We don't just have mothers and children coming over.
Oh, Tomi just slapped her upside the head. What does she call Trump? Lord Emperor. And Tomi called Biden poopy pants.
You got it. You convinced the world that Joe Biden is cognitively responsive. That'll be a good debate for another day. But as it comes back to our southern border, we've got terrorists coming across our southern border. We've got military-age men coming across our southern border. And by the way, it's bankrupting our nation. It's bankrupting your major blue cities where they don't know where to put these people. And the black and brown people that you talk about in these major American cities that happen to be American, they are the ones getting the short end of the stick as their facilities and their resources are being used to take care of people who have no legal right to be here.
Oh, Tomi just went in. She absolutely tore her one. Now, I don't know who that other dude is, but he's been completely cut out of the conversation. This is a full-on catfight at this stage.
So if you want to talk about that bipartisan border bill, it was a joke. Also, your president today could take executive action to solve the problem, as my president, Donald Trump, did. He chose not to. He chooses not to because he sees these people as future voters. He wants the Democrat Party to remain in power, and that is why we have an invasion at our southern border.
Yeah, absolutely. Biden could stop the leak in the border with executive action without a problem. That's what Donald Trump did. Now, that nonsense bill or bills that passed through Congress was an absolute joke. It hardly did anything for the border. They did it, they packaged it all together so they could pass funds for the Ukraine. Simple as that.
Biden continued all of Trump's policies at the border. I just want to name that. Like, I super disagree
But you know
with
what,
them.
Francesca? There comes a point.
Biden
You know what,
undid Trump's
Francesca? There
border
comes a point
policies.
in every presidency where you cannot keep blaming the guy before you. You can't.
No, he
Biden has
literally
done
was like,
nothing on the southern border. Nothing.
He continued
Nothing.
Trump's
Zilch,
policies
zero.
of Title 42, preventing anyone from seeking asylum. That is illegal under international law. So why isn't the right celebrating that was Joe Biden who continued a Trump policy? I don't get it. I'm not blaming him. I'm blaming him for a Trump policy that the right should ostensibly like.
Okay.
I don't like it, but everyone, like the Republicans should. It's just wild to me. But yes, back to Ukraine. I've said it again. We actually need. Look, here's the world that Trump wants. Trump wants a world where all these wars are over quick. Tomi said it herself, right?
What's wrong with that?
Look over in Israel. Well, what's wrong with that is 25,000 women and children killed in Gaza, having been suspected militants or not militants or who cares, or they were in a neonatal unit in a hospital waiting for their child to survive a war as they gave birth early. So that's what's wrong with just allowing any one of our allies to do whatever they want.
This Francesca is just talking nonsense. Of course, people get killed in wars. That's why you need to strike peace deals. And when you have peace deals, don't give them up so easy. Who got you into this war? If Palestinians want peace, they really need to get rid of Hamas.
Israel, of course, is
Trump's
responding.
worldview in Russia.
Hang on. On that point, Israel is responding to one of the worst terror attacks of modern times, in which Hamas
Perpetrated
slaughtered
by-
1,200 people, including innocent
Perpetrated by
women,
premature
children, and so
babies.
on. So
Someone remind
Perpetrated by
Francesca.
Preemies?
Yeah, Piers, you got to remind Francesca that there was a ceasefire on October 6th, and the terrorist organization Hamas chose to break that ceasefire. Hamas also keeps their
Right.
military stockpiles underneath of schools and hospitals, something that she's conveniently ignoring because she has
it's
taken on the
cool.
Hamas propaganda and made it her own. Congratulations.
Yeah, look, once again, I'm not on the side of Israel. I'm not on the side of Hamas. I'm on the side of peace and prosperity. I want everyone to prosper, and I'm pro-family. So that means not killing women and children. That means protecting them. That means providing for them. I hate wars. I cannot stand wars. That's one of the reasons why I prefer Trump. He is anti-war. He'd rather strike deals that create jobs, deals that help prosper. He's not perfect, but he's the best person available for the job, and he has a track record. Look at Biden's track record. Looks like a henhouse after the fox has been let in. It is crazy and chaotic.
No, congratulations. So it's cool to kill a bunch of preemie babies in their incubators. Is that what you're saying? It's cool to fire upon hospital workers. It's cool to level colleges and universities, Tomi, because supposedly there's Hamas units under them. Is that what you're saying? It's okay. This is all collateral damage.
Supposedly, that's what they actually do. That's actually the strategy.
So it's okay.
That is the
So
Hamas
it's okay.
propaganda strategy 101. No, it's Israel goes to great lengths, more than any other country in the world, maybe outside of the United States, to avoid civilian death. You know that, I know that, but you're reading the Hamas propaganda and you're spreading it around to the world. But unfortunately, it's sad to me that you are puppeting.
Yeah, that's why
the
their
words
AI
of
systems
Hamas. But
were
I guess
designed
that's
to
up to
kill
you.
people
You
as
do
soon
you.
as they got home to their homes. Like, do you read the newspaper? Do you understand like what's coming out? That's IDF soldiers are saying, I pressed the button to murder an entire family because there was a suspected militant as soon as they entered their home, and I killed dozens of their family members. That just came out. That's not propaganda. That is an Israeli reporter talking to IDF soldiers. But whatever, it's fine. The fact that everyone's so triggered when anyone talks about the truth shows you what side needs the propaganda in this genocide, and that's Israel.
I got to leave it there.
Piers, I think Francesca has a protest at Columbia to get to.
Look, if anyone's getting triggered, it's definitely not Tomi, it's that Francesca. Now, she actually does bring up some points. She's right, but in the wrong way. Like I said, she does make some points. However, I both believe and disbelieve both sides. You can't believe everything you hear. Yes, I believe women and children are being lost, but I also believe Hamas are using them as human shields.
All right, let's leave it there.
Hats off to all of them. Free
to Tomi.
speech, Tommy. You believe in free speech? Remember free speech, the right? Is that all?
Yeah, free speech doesn't cover actually making threats against Jewish people, does it?
Sure. Yeah, you've got so much evidence to back you up, Piers. But keep telling yourself that the college
There
students
were
are the
literally
biggest threat to
people
this world.
chanting about Hamas in those protests.
It's Putin and college students. Are those the biggest threats, if I'm clear?
I think if you're a Jewish student in New York or something like that, and you have people literally chanting support for the terror group which slaughtered 1,200 people on October the 7th, yeah, that's not free speech. That's actually a threat on people's lives.
Have been arrested in their opposition to this genocide. Jewish people in this country have been leading the charge to stop this genocide. Okay, they've been so brave, and Donald Trump says probably the most anti-Semitic thing. This is the guy who's running for president, says, if you're Jewish and you don't vote for me, that's terrible. You hate Israel. You hate yourself. Is that not anti-Semitic? Come on now.
Well, he has a Jewish son-in-law, and in fact, his daughter's now Jewish. Right. So he can't be that anti-Semitic.
The guy who got a $2 billion deal from Saudi Arabia? Hell yeah.
All right, I've got to leave it there. But thank you for a spirited debate. To Tomi, to Chris, and to Francesca. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris, who even knew he was there? Francesca, just take the L. Tomi, making common sense as usual. Piers, I can't work you out with this war thinking that the US has never-ending funds. I can't understand why you don't think Europeans should fund and back this war if they believe that they are under a threat and under attack. US is under attack on their southern border. Ukraine's not part of NATO. And when it comes to Israel and Hamas, that one is tough, but you know, I've been covering it a little while now, and I've come to the conclusion that this war wouldn't have gone off if Hamas did not attack on October 7. That is the catalyst for all of this carnage. You can say that they're, Israel are creating war crimes. It's like calling someone a racist these days. How many times have actually war criminals been tried and convicted? How people don't trust the police? How the hell are you going to trust people in war? How are you going to trust them to behave? Be true gentlemen. Oh, excuse me, before I blow you up, do you mind just moving to the left just so I can get through and, bring your... Ain't going to happen. Just ain't going to happen. The best thing is don't punch someone in the nose if you don't want to be punched back, especially if they're 10 times bigger than you. Best things to do is to control what you have control of, which is your country, your region, your people, and lift them up. Now, to be fair, I'm not a historian on Israel and Palestine. I have very little knowledge. I'm going on what happened to start this war. And I don't have a dog in the fight, so I'm not looking at this emotionally. I am looking at this logically. I know I ain't going to start a fight with someone that's much bigger than me, that has just won a few UFC bouts. There's no way I'm tapping him on the shoulder. But that was an interesting debate. It heated up as it went on. Tomi handled herself like a champ, and Francesca, well, she added some valuetainment, I guess. Now let me know what you think. Drop your comments and thoughts in the comment section. I'll jump in there and respond as I normally do. Now, if you want to help a brother out, help me get to that 1,000 sub club, don't forget to hit the like, smash the subscribe, ring the notification bell, and share this video far and wide, and I'll catch you in the next video.